Hello, welcome back to the Evergreen RX. I'm your host, Hayden, licensed mental health therapist, Cancer Moon, and the first to get deep at any party. So honestly, maybe I'm going to just cut the preamble today because I am hot off the heels of a full work week and I am exhausted, and I'm a little bit exhausted of hearing myself talk, but I do have a podcast and I did it to myself. But that's something they never tell you when becoming a therapist is like, oh my God, I'm so annoyed by myself sometimes. At the end of the week, I'm like, okay, Hayden, shut the fuck up. Like, no, not really. I practice self-compassion, so I'm not mean like that, but I am like, okay, I think I can go into a little bit of a hermit hole for the next 24 hours. Usually at least just Friday afternoon. I'm like, let's just chill, stay home, watch a movie, which is probably what I'm going to do after all of this is said and done. But girls got to do what a girl's got to do as well. So I have to record and I want to show up for you guys consistently. So you're welcome. I'll take the virtual applause in the comments below. But no, really, if you want to express your appreciation in any way, which you don't have to. I don't know. All of this is sounding like I'm like, and come on, thank me for the thing that I'm voluntarily doing. But hearing from you guys is such a like motivator and feels so good to me. And so if you've had any thoughts or you've been a silent listener and you've never reached out or shared your feelings with me about this pod, I would love that. So maybe take this as your sign to do it, because it would just make my day for sure. But yeah, I'm just gonna hop right into the question of today. For any of you guys that are new, I like to answer listener questions on this podcast, so you can write me your questions at theevergreenrx@gmail.com or text me or call me at 512-655-9888 and let me know your mental health related questions. Send me text you don't know how to respond to. You can get as detailed as you would like or as vague as you want. I think that questions are a good way to learn, like specific experiences and things are a little bit easier for me to speak to sometimes than just keeping things really general and trying to share like, you know, what I know or start a conversation about these different like wellness topics. So anyway, that's a long way to say that I like to answer questions, and we've got a great question for today. But as always, like, this is not therapy. This doesn't have to be prescriptive to you. If it doesn't apply, it doesn't apply. That's fine. I really want you to take what works for you and then add it, fold it in. Fold in the cheese. Fold it into your life in any way that you see fit. Because I'm a curious person and I love to learn. So I thought, why don't I give it back and share what I have learned? Okay, well, without further ado, I'm going to open the shop up and let the first and only customer of today in. So the question says, Dear Evergreen, lately I've been feeling kind of weird and left out. Some of my friends have been hanging out without me, and even though I try not to let it get to me, I still end up feeling a little jealous or hurt. It's not that I expect to be invited to everything, but I hate wondering why I'm not included. How do you deal when you're not included and it stings more than you want to admit? So this is the good old FOMO, guys. We know it. I mean, how did people talk about it before we had that, you know, perfect millennial acronym for it? I don't know. Maybe I'm shitting on millennials for no reason. It might not be new, this acronym, but it feels like, you know, 5 or 10 years ago, everybody was like FOMO, 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 and then everybody was like JOMO, joy of missing out. Like, I don't know. But it is funny, or it's helpful to have a word to encapsulate a little bit what's going on in this question, and we can relate to it easy, you know. Who hasn't felt some FOMO? And it sucks. It sucks, especially with social media. Nothing feels worse than opening up your phone and being like, oh, great, all of my best friends are hanging out without me. I'm not going to take that personal. But it can feel really personal and just a little bit shocking sometimes. That like sinking feeling in your stomach. You know, when your stomach drops, does that happen to you guys when you realize you've been excluded from something? Your stomach just drops and you're like, what did I do wrong? Like, it hurts. So this person being like, it stings a little bit more than you want to admit. I guess my first thing is just to normalize that and just, I think, validate how universal that feeling can be. I mean, no one wants to feel excluded. We're social creatures. Like, we're really pretty hardwired to feel afraid of being left out of the pack. So it is sucky when it happens. And, it's really hard to not think immediately like, well, why did they not invite me? Like, what did I do something wrong? Like, do they not like me anymore? So it can really touch on some of our wounded places. If we have any belief or fear that's already in there that maybe people don't really like us, then man, that's gonna be one point in that category. We're gonna be able to take the image in our mind of all of our friends hanging out without us and use that as fodder for that part that's like, yeah, and they don't like you actually, and no one does. And so that's just not going to feel good. And so yeah, like, you're going to feel weird seeing people get together without you. Even the most confident person might feel a little bit weird because, man, like, if they love me, don't they want me at everything? Even though we know that that's not the case and it's not so black and white, like, every single one of us, as much as we've been on the receiving end of not being included, we've also been the one not including other people. And not always because we don't like them, or probably less often it's that we don't like them and we are trying to exclude them or hurt their feelings, but it's just not what the moment calls for, or we didn't think about it, or it was last minute, or we were doing something that a certain subset of friends all have in common, and the person that we didn't include doesn't do that thing or doesn't like that thing. There's so many other reasons, and we can understand that a lot more easily when we're on the in group, and we tend to forget all of those other reasons when we're on the out group. So my thought is, like, you might be surprised at how much can shift pretty quickly if you just accept or allow yourself to feel weird and upset about it for a bit. So not really question or try to talk yourself out of it stinging, but to accept that that's a reasonable response and you deserve to be able to work through it a bit before you figure out, what you want to do, or maybe before you just kind of move forward from it. Give yourself some space. Talk to a neutral person about it. Not a mutual friend. Let's not go starting drama. But maybe call your mom or talk to your brother or a cousin or somebody that's just not involved with the social circle where this is occurring, and be able to get it off your chest, how this makes you feel. Maybe notice or get curious if it's touching on anything from the past, if it's more than just this moment. Like, who of us don't have some like awful exclusion FOMO story from high school? I mean, God, if you got out of high school without being left out at some point, you're either the best person alive and people can't stand to hang out without you, or you just got really lucky, because I think it's really hard to come out unscathed, and those situations can be so painful, especially at that age. It feels really personal. Sometimes it can be made personal, or we can be bullied a bit, or it's made really public, like that we're being excluded. So those are some weighty, moments, some weighted memories that might be coming up if this is happening to you as an adult and you're finding yourself having a large or larger reaction to the FOMO. And once you move through it and you talk through it a bit with your little trusted neutral friend, I say you might be surprised because you might find that it's kind of lost a little bit of its sting or its luster, or maybe you realize like, oh no, of course they weren't trying to exclude me. You know, my two best friends went to a hockey game and they know I hate hockey. So they just didn't tell me about it. Like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And you might just feel a little bit more clear-headed once the initial shock and hurt wears off and be like, okay, I get it now. I would do the same thing in this situation or whatever. Or you're more clear-headed and you can figure out what action you want to take or what you want to do about it. You know, say it was a friend's birthday and you see a photo from this big group dinner and you're the only one that wasn't there and you weren't out of town and, you know, you weren't busy. Maybe there's something that needs to be discussed about that, or it feels like maybe you want to address that with the birthday girl or something, and it's not so easy to just like move on, or once the emotions have died down, the reason still isn't really clear. And I'm not saying we always have to know why we're not included. You know, it just is a part of life. But you guys get it. You can kind of see the difference in those situations, and maybe one we have to do a little bit more about to be able to move forward in a healthy way and without building resentment or making up a bunch of stories in our head and not really reality checking them. So I found a really great article on Wondermind when I was preparing for this episode, and it really nicely lists out options and strategies for what to do in a situation like this and how to take care of yourself. And I'll definitely have that linked below. I think Wondermind is a really cool resource for all things mental health. You can filter by how you're feeling and find articles and interviews related to that feeling, which I think is really cool. And they talk a lot about friendships and being left out. And so I'll have that link below if you want to see the written format, and I won't repeat everything in there. But one of the things, like the biggest thing I think I wanted to touch on when answering this question is on whether or not to have a conversation with this friend or the friends of the offending party. You know, I thought it was interesting because in the article they do say, like, is it appropriate to have this conversation? Say it's like a coworker thing. Would it be weird to have a conversation with one of your coworkers like, oh, why didn't you invite me to this, you know, dinner party or something? Maybe it's a little weird. Maybe it wouldn't feel totally appropriate for what the relationship is. So I thought it was cool to have that distinction on whether or not it's worth a conversation. But I think that if it feels like it is, it's really worth going to your friend and being open about your feelings so that they don't just kind of breed and brood and you start making up stories about what might be going on. Because sometimes it's like it's a miscommunication. We get it cleared up really quick. Other times it might identify or open the door to a potential rift or issue that is in the relationship that hasn't been addressed. And maybe the other person felt like they couldn't address it, so they just started excluding you from things. And as much as that would sting, and I think a lot of us avoid having these types of conversations because we don't want to find that out, it's my belief that it's maybe better to know than to continue to get hurt or for a relationship to become really kind of icky or contentious because there's like an elephant in the room that isn't being addressed. So this is one way, having a conversation that can open the door for anything that maybe has gone unsaid between you and your friend to come up. And I think we can learn a lot of information from bringing this up with our friend or friends. A lot of information from how they react to you. So if someone reacts with the deep, care and concern, and they hear, oh, I've hurt your feelings and I want to do, what I can to clear this up, or at least want to hear you out on, what kind of happened for you when you found out we all did this without you or whatever. Like if there's just a genuine care and empathy, even if they say, yeah, I didn't really want to have you. And I understand that that's very hurtful. I just wanted to get together with a small group. I felt like having you would make it a bigger thing. It was just a call that I made in that moment. And I'm really sorry how that hurt you. I understand. Stings, but said with a lot of love and care and understanding. I think that speaks to the friendship. That as much as it sucks that our friend doesn't always want us around, at least they could receive your feelings about it and be, warm and honest. Awesome. We can also learn a lot if we're met with defensiveness or silence or stonewalling or somebody trying to talk you out of your feelings, convince you that you're not actually that upset about it, or you're being dramatic, or really, do we have to invite you to everything? Are you going to be like that? Am I not allowed to do what I want to do with my friends? Different energy there. Because again, we all have felt FOMO. So I think it's not too high of a bar to set for some empathy to be given. And if your friend is not able to see that or becomes really defensive, then it's good information. I'm not going to tell you what it's good information for. I can't tell you whether or not. I'm not going to go out of my scope here on this question. I'll talk about it in a later episode if you guys want, but I can't say for sure what you then should do about it. But good information is good information, and we can just keep it in our back pocket. And over time, those kinds of things inform how close we are to people, at least in my opinion. Oh, I think another piece with having the conversation, though, you have to really know yourself and how you show up in relationships too. One, if you're like, I just don't like conflict, I just avoid a conflict at all costs. No one really likes conflict, but sometimes it's necessary and it's healthy. The other thing would be knowing yourself and if you're gonna be able to hide how this made you feel. If you're going to be normal next time you see your friends that all hung out without you and just be able to move forward. If you truly feel in your heart of hearts that you're all good with it and you can work through it on your own and you don't need to bring it up. Because for me, I'm not very good at brushing things under the rug or ignoring how I feel or hiding it. I don't think it really serves me in relationships. So if I know that I'm not really going to be able to be normal without bringing it up, then I'm going to have to bring it up. As much as I don't want to, I'm going to have to, because it's going to hurt the relationship in the long run if I just try to swallow it and I'm showing up in a weird way. Lastly, I'll just leave you with the fact that it's going to happen. We're going to be excluded. Friendships are going to morph and change sometimes before we're ready for them to, or we don't want them to. Sometimes we're going to be excluded purposefully, and there's nothing that we can do about it. And it really sucks and it hurts. But, you can remember, and this came to me just in this moment, and even though it's cheesy, I will impart it on you. You can be the juiciest, most delicious peach in the world, and not everybody likes peaches. And so, one of the 4 agreements for any of you that have read that book is don't take things personally. It's one of the hardest. It seems so easy. We love to convince ourselves we're not taking things personally, that we actually are. But this is one of those moments that even if they don't like you and they did not want to hang out with you and they repeatedly exclude you, doesn't mean anything is wrong with you. You just might not be their cup of tea. Or there's a million fucking other things that can go on with that I just can't even get into. But it's gonna happen. I'm sorry. It's so hard. That sinking gut feeling is so sucky. And we want to be loved. We want to feel like we're in reciprocal relationships. We want to feel like we're wanted. Those are deep, deep human desires that can get challenged a bit, or we can maybe fall into questioning them a bit when we find out that we're not included. So my heart goes out to you, my loves, and just allowing and accepting space for the hurt, space for the processing, and then in due time moving forward and choosing your next best action. And maybe you just say, hey, Mel Robbins, let them, I'm going to let it go. Or there's more that needs to be done here to really show up and prioritize a healthy, open, honest, communicative relationship. You know that best. If you have questions about it, you can always ask me about your personal, your specific situation, and I'll help the best that I can with the information that I have. But until next time, take great care of yourself, and I'll see you over on Instagram and TikTok at the Evergreen RX. Okay, catch you guys next Wednesday.